What's up, everyone? James Lynch here, JHK here. This is the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. You're probably thinking, what are you doing here on a Monday? And James, where are you right now? Have you been kidnapped? No, I'm actually still on the road right now doing this. We're doing it on Monday because I'm going to be on a flight tomorrow. So thanks for everyone who is tuning in here today. Our normal time is Tuesday. That hasn't changed. I know we keep changing the times and stuff, but today and going forward, today is Monday. Going forward, we'll be on Tuesdays. So just keep that in mind. But thank you so much for tuning in. Happy New Year, our first stream of the new year. I think we started this thing almost a year ago. So really happy to be back with Fantasy Fanatics and doing our thing here. If you haven't watched the show before, basically we preview an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, we're going to be looking at the middleweight main event between Sean Strickland and Jack Hermansson taking place on February 5th. If you guys have any questions about that fight or anything in general, just post it in the chat. We'll get to it as soon as we can. And also remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. Our next UFC event is January 15th, so you can already get your picks in for that. And we put our picks in too, so you can make fun of us if you have your picks better than ours. So there we go. Again, apologies for the setup here today. Like I said, I'm on the road, so if the audio and the video is off a little bit, just let me know. But yeah, let's get into this awesome fight, Jack Hermansson, Sean Strickland. We always start with how we got here when it comes to a matchup, and this one's a little bit interesting. So I want to go all the way back to UFC 268. Sean Strickland, Luke Rockhold. It was a great fight that was lined up on that card. And of course, Luke Rockhold withdrawing from that fight due to a back injury. Now, here's the key thing. The UFC wanted Jack Hermansson to fight Sean Strickland on that card as a replacement. I spoke to Jack shortly before his wrestling match with Khamzat Chimaev, and Hermansson mentioned that he was offered the fight, but Hermansson's been dealing with some health issues. Now, I'm told this is not COVID related. It's just certain health issues he's been dealing with, so he didn't feel comfortable about taking that fight against Strickland. However, he did wrestle Chimaev just a few weeks later. So they did want this fight early on. And, you know, with the uncertainty of when Rockhold's going to be back and with certain fights getting booked up in the middleweight division, this made a lot of sense. And I'll even throw this out even further. I posted a clip of Hermansson just, you know, on my Instagram, just talking about him, you know, saying that he was offered the Sean Strickland fight. And Sean Strickland, back when he was on Instagram, back when he wasn't kicked off, commented and said, hey, I'd love that fight. So I think it was pretty inevitable this was going to be a matchup that was going to happen. I think rankings wise, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, it's just a great fight. And I think you just see, you know, on two occasions, you've got Strickland, who had a really big 2021, get rewarded with this really good main event. And then you got a guy in Hermansson who, John, you've been watching my stuff. We've been interviewing Hermansson for a while. This is a guy that deserves that recognition. I think he's one of the most underrated middleweights in the weight class. So that's how we got here. I just think it's a great main event. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I think we got here because a lot of people just don't want to fight Strickland. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of risk, but not as much reward, I guess. But Hermansson, he's kind of in this middle in-between spot, right? Where he's not like going to be fighting for the title anytime soon. But if he takes this fight, it actually, you know, propels him further in, you know, ahead in the rankings. So I like what Jack is thinking and what he's kind of taking the initiative here, right? And taking on the fight that nobody wants to take. And I love the matchup, man. And Sean Strickland, you know, what can you say? He's a guy that really he will fight anybody, right? And, you know, nobody wants to really fight him. I really wanted to see the Luke Rockhold fight. I really wanted to see where Luke Rockhold was, but it feels like Luke Rockhold is probably never going to come back.
He's done. So he's done. I think that was the MMA God saying, Luke, no, you're good. You're good. You're taking a lot of damage. It's time to hang it up. I mean, this is a guy who's got other things outside the cage. He's a model. He's got other stuff going on. Why risk your health? You know, I don't see, even if Rockhold did come back, I just don't see him making a lot of noise because once your chin goes, I mean, it's really tough to like, and granted, he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz and some other guys too, but it's just, once that chin goes, you're pretty much, I mean, it doesn't matter how great you are. If your chin's a liability, you can't compete at a high level. Chuck Liddell's a prime example of this. I mean, here's a guy that was wrecking everyone. And then once his chin went, it didn't matter if he was fighting Rashad Evans or Rich Franklin or whoever, he was susceptible to getting knocked out. So I'm personally am happy to not see Rockhold back in there. Okay, so hopefully the screen is up there. I can't see my screen right now because I'm on I'm on a laptop here, but we're seeing the Hermansson and Strickland betting odds on your screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So there we go. Let's look at the tail of the tape and then we'll dig into this. 33 years old for Jack Hermansson, 30 years old for Strickland. So pretty similar age-wise. Same with fights. 28 fights for Hermansson, 27 fights for Strickland. 22 wins compared to 24 for Strickland. 6 losses compared to just 3 for Sean Strickland. Now, keep in mind as well, and we'll go into this a little bit later, Strickland has fought primarily as a welterweight, only recently moving up to middleweight division. You've got 10 knockouts, a piece for both of them, 7 submissions for Hermansson, 4 for Strickland, 78% finish rate. You know, that's something we forget about Hermansson, is that this is a guy that does not go the distance a lot. So that's a pretty high finishing rate. Strickland just 59, but again, different weight classes. And then even physically, look how similar they are, man. 6'1" for Hermansson, 6 feet tall for Strickland, 77.5 inch reach compared to 76. I mean, this is about as even as it gets. And then even the age thing, like, they're pretty similar. That's why I love fights like this. When you see a matchup on paper that, you know, 2 guys, like I said, pretty underrated in the weight class, have really sort of come into their own, you know, really, really even fight here, which is great. So we don't have odds for the matchup yet, although I'm just looking here on the side here. We do have Sean Strickland on some books here as almost a 2-1 favorite. FanDuel having him at -190, which is understandable considering the momentum that Strickland has from that last win over Uriah Hall. I know Hermansson came off a win in his last fight, and we'll get into that in a second. But, you know, he's not that far removed from losing to, you know, Vettori, and then also losing to Jared Cannonier as well. So we'll get into those fights in a sec here. 3 years age gap. Yeah, we mentioned sort of everything that's going on here. Let's start with Strickland as well, a guy who kind of just blew up this last year, maybe for not all the right reasons, and for some right reasons as well. So Strickland, training out of Extreme Couture, was a kind of a guy that was training a lot of different places. I remember for a while he was at Team Quest with Dan Henderson, and then was training at Syndicate and Extreme, and then I think now Extreme is like his full-time home. I don't believe he's at Extreme at Syndicate anymore, or maybe no. You know what? I think I'm getting him mixed up with Chris Curtis. My bad. But either way, I know he has a lot of variety in terms of training partners. You look at it there, Uriah Hall decision. That's the biggest win of his career. That was a fight where I remember a lot of people picking Hall going into that one. And Strickland has really just continued that momentum that he had last year. Now, he beat Christoph Yako as well. Not a great fight, I'll be honest. That was a fight where I think Strickland, you know, I don't think it was the most appeasing fight to the fans, and he got the win, but I don't think it was the type of win like the Hall win where people said, okay, this guy can actually make some noise. The Brendan Allen win was great. Now, we've seen Brendan Allen get knocked out as recently as the card that he was supposed to be on at UFC 268 with Chris Curtis knocking him out, but typically Allen's a tough guy to put away, right? I mean, he's not a guy other than, you know, like I said, Chris Curtis. Strickland was the first guy to really blitz him and just take him out. And that to me is a really impressive win, because Brendan Allen, I know, like I said, the last fight didn't go his way, but Brendan Allen's still a pretty solid fighter and a guy who's, you know what, mid-20s, still moving up the ranks. So that to me was a really impressive win. Jack Marshman, whatever. What are you going to do? And then he had a win over Nordine Taleb at welterweight as well. But if you look at his losses, you know, one of them's against, actually, I need to go back a little bit further here. One of Strickland's losses, if I'm not mistaken, is to Kamaru Usman. That's right. And then he lost to Zaleski at welterweight as well. But, I mean, that's a fight where, you know, 9 times out of 10 they fight. It's probably a different result. So, really, if you look at who he's losing to, and then what was it, his second or third UFC fight, he loses to Ponzinibbio. His losses aren't bad. That's one thing to his credit that, you know, Strickland has done quite well with the opposition that he's faced here. We mentioned that they're 59% finishing rate, 10 by knockout. His stand-up is really what has evolved, and he's become a really good pressure fighter as well, kind of getting in people's faces. And we talked about that going into the Hall fight, that if you want to beat Uriah Hall, you got to get it in his face, and that's certainly what Strickland has done. So we're really getting a good, strong, very solid Sean Strickland coming into this fight. And, you know, we'll talk about the implications after the fact, but this is a really big matchup for him. So your thoughts on Strickland and what he brings to the table?
I feel like Strickland, when he first came on the scene in 2014, you know, he did well. He got a couple wins. You know, he lost to Ponzinibbio, which, you know, is not a bad thing, because Ponzinibbio was a killer back then, way big of a knockout artist than he is right now. And he just kind of, I think he got kind of lost in the fold a little bit. You know what I mean? He didn't really have the personality that he had. If he did, nobody knew about it. And you know what I mean? Like, he just kind of like won a few, lost a few, you know what I mean? And then he kind of found his footing, dude, at middleweight. And he's been impressive. I feel like in his last couple of wins, the Christoph Jocko one was probably the most impressive, because I think Christoph Jocko is just a weird matchup for a lot of people, and he's hard to put away. And I think, you know, Sean Strickland going in there and getting that unanimous decision over him was very impressive. The Uriah Hall one, you know, everybody knows the thing with Uriah Hall, man. If you get in his head a little bit, he kind of doesn't perform to the level that he's supposed to perform at. And I think Sean Strickland did do that, not really with his words, but more with his performance and that pressure that he has. Sean Strickland, man, that pressure, that's the key, I think, for him. like kind of like built like growing into his body as a middleweight and having that pressure style, and he's fearless. I think that's another thing that people have to understand too, is he'll sit in the pocket with anybody. Look, he sat in the pocket with Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall is a straight up, knockout artist, right, at middleweight. Strickland, those things are the things that pop out in my mind about him. And I feel like he's only just getting better and better and better. And with the experience that he accumulates at middleweight against better competition, he's going to be one of those guys. And I think in the next 3-4 years, he's going to be in that top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, a really good fight here against Jack Hermansson. Let's talk about the Joker here. 33 years old, from Sweden, and originally from Sweden, lives in Norway now, trains out there. He has a 78% finishing rate, like we mentioned, and a little bit of inconsistency over the last couple of fights. However, the guys he's losing to are pretty good here, right? So he beat Shabazian. Now, that was a fight that was interesting, John. If you remember, Shabazian actually won that first round, or at least was doing quite well in the first round. And then Hermansson got going, and he ended up taking out Shabazian. And no offense to Edmund Shabazian, but I think we know the verdict on him is that you just got to get this guy to the first round, and you could probably beat him. And granted, Hermansson had some health issues in that fight as well. Let's see how he is. I'm curious, I'm going to interview him, and I'm sure you will as well, coming up here soon. I'm curious to see where the health issues are at, because I believe that did play a role in the win over Shabazian. He still got the win, but still, it was a bit of a slow start there. The Marvin Vettori fight was interesting because, of course, I think a lot of people forget that he had so many opponent switch ups, right? Like, I think it was it Darren Till, and then he had it was supposed to be Kevin Holland, and then they kept switching the fight, and eventually they landed on Vettori. And then if you remember in that fight early on, Hermansson actually broke his orbital bone, so he was really limited sort of going forward. And I think the fact that he actually survived the decision, I think is credit to just the heart that he has, and sort of the no quit, and that actually impressed me. I know he ended up losing that decisively against Vettori, but if you remember, that was the fight that ended up getting Vettori, or at least close to Vettori getting that title shot. So Vettori's he just fought for the middleweight title. Like, he's a very solid guy in that weight class. So the fact that Hermansson ended to fight him on short notice, he had the eye injury early, and went the distance with him, and Vettori couldn't finish him, I think speaks volumes to Hermansson's heart and toughness there as well. He beat Calvin Gastelum before that. That was a quick win. You remember that? It was like in the blink of an eye, he just went out there and submitted Gastelum, which, again, Gastelum's fallen off a bit, but you look at some of the guys that Gastelum's fought, he's gone the distance with them. And for Hermansson to finish him that quickly just shows you the level of ground game he has, and just the confidence he had in taking him out. That was super impressive. And that was a win I thought, earned him a notable opponent after that. Jared Cannonier, I feel for him a bit here, because, Hermansson could have probably waited on the sidelines a little bit and maybe waited out and seeing if he got a title shot or whatever, but he opted to fight Cannonier close to home, or I think it was in his hometown or close to his hometown, and he ended up getting knocked out in the second round. And Cannonier is one of those guys that he's got that power where at any moment he can put you out. So don't necessarily fault him for that, but, when he beat Jacare the fight before, you kind of think, hey, maybe he should have just not taken that fight. I don't know, but it was kind of a tough one here. So, you look at the record now, it's a little bit of inconsistency, but I give him a pass in the sense that all the fighters that he's fought over the last little bit, maybe outside of Shabazian, are all top guys. In fact, you could argue that he's fought better opposition than Sean Strickland to this point. I mean, I would pick, Vettori and Cannonier over Uriah Hall all day. So, Hermansson, obviously dangerous guy, and good ground game too. I mean, we talked earlier about the submissions. We haven't seen it recently, but I mean, that Calvin Gastelum submission right up there with one of the great submissions of that year. So Hermansson's going to be interesting in this fight. And again, coming off that, freestyle wrestling thing to Chimaev, which, you can't put too much stock into that, honestly. Hermansson even told me in the interviews, like, I've never done freestyle wrestling. So it's like, okay, you're wrestling a guy who that's his bread and butter and everything else. And obviously a lot of hype too. So I don't really fault him for that either. So your thoughts on Jack Hermansson and what he brings to the table in this fight?
I feel like his ground game is still underrated by a lot of people. And you mentioned the Gastelum submission. Yeah, that was so quick. And so I thought Gastelum was like a 10th planet jiu-jitsu black belt or something, and he just went in there and took that ankle real fast. I was shocked by that. But I feel like the most impressive submission win for Jack Hermansson was against Jared Mearshot, because I feel like Jared Mearshot is probably one of the best top 10, top 15 submission artists in that division. And he went in there and guillotined him, right? And then right after that, he guillotined David Branch, which I thought that was a good win too. Yeah, that Jared Cannonier, it's like every time Jack takes a chance on a matchup, he ends up losing. If you look at it, the Jared Cannonier fight, the Marvin Vettori fight, he got injured in that first round. I feel like if he didn't break his orbital in that first round, that fight would have been a lot more competitive, and maybe it would have, Hermansson would have won that fight. Maybe. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Because fighting with one eye is, not a fun day, especially with a guy that's in your face like Vittori is for 25 minutes. So, the Shabaji win, I still think that he did well. Even, I still think that he did have some problems with COVID, in that fight.
Yeah.
And, but he toughed it out, man. He shows you that he's really tough. The Vittori fight showed you he's tough. The Ebit Shabazian fight showed you he's tough. He can make the adjustments, and he's just accumulating experience. I like it, man. I like Jack Hermansson. I feel like he's getting better too. I don't feel like he's plateaued yet in his career. He's 33. I think right now will be the time where he shows the best version of himself. Strickland, on the other hand, I feel like he's going to get better and better and better. He still has a few years left. But for Jack, I think this is the time, man. This is the matchup.
So let's get to our picks here. Again, really interesting fight. We're seeing some books have Strickland as about a 2-1 favorite, and I get it. I mean, again, I think momentum's a big thing here, right? You got a guy in Hermansson who, did lose a fight last year. We talked about the optics of that. He did beat Edmund Shabazian in his last one, but Strickland has remained undefeated since moving up to middleweight. So there's something to be said for that. Strickland's a little bit younger, and again, well, he doesn't have the finish rate. He certainly does, get a lot done here. The thing that for me that if this was the Jack Hermansson pre-COVID, I think this fight would be closer to a pick'em. But I do have my concerns about Hermansson and whether or not, you're never forced to fight. But I think at the same time, like, he doesn't want to be on the sidelines too long. I mean, there was a period where Hermansson was waiting a while for an opponent, with the opponent switch ups and things of that nature. So I feel like he just wants to get back in there and do it. But I have my questions about his health. Like, I want to find this out. I don't know this yet, but based off the knowledge I know right now, it doesn't seem like he's 100%. And you got to be 100% to fight Sean Strickland. Like, to me, Strickland's a really good pressure guy. We've seen when Hermansson gets pressured, like against Jared Cannonier, he tends to not do so well. And I think, while Strickland doesn't have the same power that a Jared Cannonier has, he is a guy that can go out there and get in your face and intimidate you. The other thing we haven't even talked about is that, Jack Hermansson's a pretty laid back guy. They call him the Joker and all that. And he did fight a pretty emotional guy in Marvin Vittori, but it was such a short notice fight that I don't think Vittori was able to sort of get in his head. Can Sean Strickland get in the head of Jack Hermansson? I do wonder that as well, because, Hermansson's or Strickland's one of those guys that can get under your skin. He's, like you said, he's what you see is what you get. And I do wonder, like, that definitely happened in the Brendan Allen fight. And I've never, I've interviewed Brendan for years. I've never seen him get that upset over a particular fighter. I think Strickland has the ability to do that here with Jack Hermansson as well, because we've never really seen a guy get under the skin of Jack Hermansson. It never had to, but with the stakes of this, in terms of Strickland being a main event and just him overall, I think he could go out there and do that too. The other thing is, I just think that, I think just the style matchup, I think, favors Strickland. Now, here's the thing. Hermansson gets us to the ground, could be a whole different story here. I mean, Strickland, we don't know how good his ground game is really, because we don't really see him down there. But I think Hermansson could exploit that as well. But to me, I think the fight stays standing, and I give a slight edge to Strickland. And I think that the speed, I think just the overall activity, I think is going to be something that the judges are going to look at if it does in fact go the distance. But I could see Strickland getting a late finish in this one. It's 5 rounds. I know he wasn't able to put away Uriah Hall, but I could see with Hermansson, assuming he's got some health issues, he might slow down in those later rounds, and that's where Strickland can go out there and get it done. So I'm predicting either a late finish here for strong Strickland or potentially a decision, but I think this is Strickland's fight to lose unless Hermansson comes out and shows us a lot better than what he showed us in the Edmund Shabazian fight, because I think you can't be a slow starter against a Sean Strickland, because he's going to come out you guns a-blazing, and I think that's where Strickland can take advantage here. So I'm going with Sean Strickland. I'm agreeing with the odds here. Who are you picking?
I'm going to disagree about, pre-COVID Jack Hermansson. I think Jack Hermansson, he took this fight because he knows that he doesn't have those COVID problems anymore. I think he's healthy. I feel like he's overcome all of that, and we're going to see the best Jack Hermansson that we've ever seen. That's, going back to that Marvin Vittori fight, I felt like if he didn't get his eye, damaged, that fight would have played out a little bit more different. I feel like Sean Strickland will bring that same style to Jack Hermansson, and that 25 minutes of fighting with one eye is going to be helpful for Jack Hermansson in this fight, because he knows this guy's going to come in his face, pressure. And I just wonder if Sean Strickland is going to mix it up, or is Jack Hermansson even going to mix it up? Or are they going to try to clinch or go for takedowns, scramble? If they do, I feel like the edge goes to Hermansson if those sequences happen in the fight, but I don't think it will. I feel like Sean Strickland will pressure, and that will just make Jack turn into a counter, fighter. And I feel like that if that happens, Sean Strickland will win the fight. He will win this fight. He'll win a decision. Like like you said, I kind of agree with you on that late finish thing. If the fight does come to a late finish, I think Sean can beat him up for a while and then go for, moments where, he could get him hurt and go for the finish. I'm gonna take Sean Strickland too in this fight, even though I feel like Jack Hermansson is gonna be much better. But man, Sean Strickland's on a roll right now. And when's the last time we saw him like at middleweight hurt ever? I don't think we've ever seen him hurt, right? I feel like the chin is solid, like iron, at middleweight. And this guy, he's full of confidence, man. I don't know where the confidence is at with Jack Hermansson. Even in the Shabazian fight, it almost seemed like he was just trying to find a way to get to that judges and get the win, not really get the finish. Sean is, I think, a different story right now.
Yeah, and that's and just to sort of reiterate what you said there, to me, I'm basing this a lot off the Shabazian fight. Like I expected, I remember when they booked that fight, I think we even talked about this. I'm like, what are they doing here with Edmund Shabazian? Like Hermansson's going to win this no problem. And I thought Hermansson would actually go out there and get another quick finish, kind of like what he did against Gaslam. Not that Shabazian, is an easy guy to take out early on, but still, I felt like he'd have a lot more success. And he got the win, but you're right. Like, it's kind of like he just wanted to get the win. He didn't really care about going out there and being impressive. And Shabazian's a guy that's borderline UFC at this point. Let's be honest here. I mean, he's really on the cusp. He hasn't been released yet, but he's a guy that I think people have figured out and done that. So to me, that's kind of what I'm basing a lot off of. And on the flip side, you've got Sean Strickland, who I thought had maybe his best performance against Uriah Hall in a really big situation. So I'm basing off that as well. Last little tidbit I'll mention, just kind of interesting little tidbit I just mentioned, has no bearing on my picking in this fight, but they both have the same management, which is interesting. They're both part of Paradigm, so I'm sure easy negotiations there. And it's just it's interesting to see. Every now and then you get these fights where it's two fighters from the same management group as well. These Strickland is ranked number 7, Hermansson number 6. Take Paulo Costa out of the rankings unless the UFC is going to let him fight at middleweight, because realistically, like the winner of this will be in that contender spot. No, especially if it's Strickland, because again, he's been on such a roll with his win streak that could really propel him up there. So yeah, just keep an eye on this fight, because I think the winner is going to get maybe the loser of Whitaker Adesanya, maybe the loser of Brunson Cannonier. Well, if it's Cannonier and it's Hermansson who wins, maybe not that fight, but you get what I'm saying there. There's a lot of options they can go with, and I think it's a really pivotal fight for this main event at UFC Vegas 47. So yeah, it's coming up here pretty quickly. Believe it or not, we're in January now. So.
And just to add a little bit more to that is, I feel like this is a crossroads fight for Hermansson. Is absolutely. He going to continue to fight the top guys, or is he going to lose and kind of become I don't want to say a gatekeeper, but a guy that's going to fight the up and comers at like the 10 to 15, 10 to 20 range until he could build himself back up again. Because, we can never count out fighters. You can never say like, you lose this fight, it's over for you in the division, because why? We just saw Charles Oliveira and so many examples, Glover Teixeira, so many examples throughout the years of guys coming back and winning the title. So we cannot count Hermansson out, but it is a crossroads fight for like future matchups for Hermansson.
Yeah, no, very well said. And I couldn't agree more on both fronts. By the way, John and I will probably get interviews with Hermansson. I'm going to try and get Strickland. He's been a little bit tough to get a hold of these days, but I should be able to get him. I mean, I've had him before. So I kind of knew when I did, I interviewed him, I think for the first time, I want to say last year, or the year before. And I remember just the way he was in that interview. I'm like, if people see how this guy is, he's going to blow up. And sure enough, he has, for good and bad. I mean, let's be honest here. Let's hope he doesn't get canceled before this fight starts, because he's been saying some pretty wacky stuff. But what are you going to do? Okay, let's get to the questions here. And we'll get to them again. Thanks for being patient. And remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Happy New Year's, guys. Awesome analysis. He said this before the show started, so I appreciate that. You already knew it was going to be good analysis. I wanted to know do you think Hermansson could really give Izzy some problems, since he's the best wrestler at middleweight and Marvin is more of a pure grappler? I mean, if he can get him to the ground, but I think a large reason why Jan Blachowicz had the advantage in that fight was just the size. He was able to actually outmuscle Izzy and get him to the ground. I don't know if a Hermansson could necessarily do that and even get to clinch with him. It's tough to say. I think he definitely has a better ground game than Izzy, but the question is, can you get it there? I don't know what you think.
I don't even think Hermansson has the best ground game in middleweight. I think Andre Muniz has the best ground game at middleweight now. That dude's a killer, man. I'm just waiting for him to build himself up into that top 5, because I think he'll be there soon. And he's going to give a lot of guys trouble when they get to the ground. Because did you see that? What was it? The armbar against Eric Anders? That
Oh, it
was
was
like one
nuts.
of the sickest transition into an armbar that we've seen in recent. I don't even people don't give him enough credit for those submissions. And the fight before that, he broke Jacare's arm. Come on, you guys need
Yeah.
to recognize that.
Yeah. You got to recognize. Also, outside of this fight, do you think Calvin Kattar comes back and pulls the trigger more as Jigga's momentum too strong? I'd feel bad for Calvin to come back another loss after a year laugh. Antoine, you're in luck. We already previewed this fight, so you can get our thoughts on that. It's already here on this channel. We did it, I think, a couple weeks ago, so we gave our picks and predictions for that fight. Also, I saw you interviewed Tyson Chartier. I did as well. So if you guys want some insight into Calvin, because Calvin's a tough guy to get in interviews with these days. I might get something with him. We'll see, but I know he's doing limited media. I am going to be interviewing one of Calvin's main training partners that's been helping him get ready for Giga Chikadze. And it's not Rob Fun. It's actually a karate kickboxing guy. So that should be ready to go come in probably the next week or two. Hype. What is up, my man? One of my Patreons, one of my favorite people joining us here on the stream today. Good morning, gentlemen. Does Strickland look to get into a title elimination bout if he gets a finish? Also, how marketable is Strickland for the UFC? So, to the first point, yeah, I wouldn't say title elimination, but he'd be right up there. I mean, I think the Cannonier-Brunson fight, the winner of that is likely going to get the winner of Whitaker and Adesanya, but he'd be right waiting in the wings. And you never know with timing, right? Some guy could get injured. There's a lot of variables but yeah, this fight is very important for both fighters. As far as how marketable Strickland is, I don't think he's that marketable because I think the society we live in now does not fit very well for Strickland. Like, I think people, I would almost put Strickland in the same sort of popularity as like, what would be a good example? Almost like a Mike Perry, but like not like in like, I think Mike Perry is like obviously way sort of worse there, but people are like intrigued by him. And I think Strickland has the same sort of appeal, but that's not appealing to the masses. You know what I mean? Like there's some people who are going to see Strickland being like, this guy's an idiot. And then there's other people who are like, oh man, Strickland's hilarious. So people definitely have a feeling towards him, but I'd say somewhere in between Colby Covington and Mike Perry, if that makes sense in terms of how people feel about him. Is that a good comparison?
Yeah. Strickland, I think he's about 2 fights away from the title. I think if he wins this fight, he could fight Marvin Vettori, and then after he beats Marvin Vettori, he could get into a title eliminator after that. I feel like that's the path for him, possibly. For marketability, I think he's marketable in some ways. You know what I mean? There's pockets of the world that enjoy Strickland's humor. You know what I mean? That support Strickland, that probably haven't found out about Strickland yet, but they like his style of, of just personality. And, if Colby Covington can do it, why can't Strickland? Why can't he do it? You know what I mean? Why can't he find his niche of, support? Because if you look at Colby Covington's numbers on like his interviews and his fights and stuff, it's tremendous, man. I think Strickland could become something like that, some kind of variable, something similar to that.
Happy New Year from SRO. Happy New Year to you as well. I think have you seen that? I don't know if you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, but there's like a whole bit on that about how like, there's like a statute of limitations on when you can say Happy New Year. And we're the 3rd. So today's the last day you can say Happy New Year. And then after that, it gets a little bit awkward. So there's a whole bit. If you look it up, type in New Year's, Happy New Year, Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's a great bit with Larry David going, I think we're a little bit past the date of Happy New Year. It's good. I have Strickland in this fight. Who should the winner face? Maybe the loser of Cannonier-Brunson. We pretty much just said that. Did you guys watch the recent Strickland interview with Schmo and Helen? Guy's a menace, but gotta love it. Yeah, I mean, the thing with with Strickland that's so funny is that like he literally just comes up with this stuff off the top of his head. Like Colby, I love Colby, but there's a lot of scripted stuff there. Hermansson, Strickland. I don't know why I keep calling him Hermansson. I guess because he's fighting him, but Strickland is like just off the cuff, and his delivery is so good when he's talking about certain stuff. Like it's very hard to do that as a comedian, and that's what makes him so funny. Like prime example, I interview him about, I did an interview with him before the fight with Uriah Hall, and just out of nowhere, he starts going off on Sean O'Malley and about that tattoo he got, and just the way he did it was hilarious. Like he just, I don't know. I know Strickland's not everyone's cup of tea, but there's some stuff he does that is hilarious. So yeah, I did see it. Those interviews, they were great.
I just watched the clips, and the clips are hilarious. I think he's funny. You know what I mean? I think the things that he says that he comes up with, like you said, off the cuff is hilarious. He needs to continue doing that, right? That shows his personality. Like, don't go too far, but you know what I mean? Like, dance on the line. That's what you need to do, because that's what a lot of fighters do nowadays. They dance on the line, and a lot of people don't like it. Some people like it. To each his own.
Do you think Luke ever fights again at this point? No. Do you think he does?
Nah, I don't think so.
Do you think Strickland? Hey, by the way, shout out to Cole. I got to hang out with Cole the other day here. That's one of the benefits of being in Ontario here for the holidays. I got to hang out with him and our other good friend Adam Martin. We went out for lunch. It was great. I haven't seen these guys in like 2 years, and we had some drinks, talked a little shop, and it was good. So shout out to Cole, and Cole actually gave me a ride, so I got a shout out to Cole Shelton, great dude. Happy holidays to him. Do you think that Strickland defeats Hermansson and Brunson beats Cannonier? Strickland leapfrogs Brunson for the next title shot, as Derek Brunson already fought Izzy, assuming Izzy beats Whitaker. That could happen. The only thing I look at is look who Brunson's manager is. I mean, as much as I don't like the guy, he typically is good about getting his clients title shots. So I think that might be something, but you're absolutely right. Like, I think there could be a case, like, for example, if Brunson beats Cannonier by like a close decision and maybe it's not that exciting and Strickland finishes Hermansson, absolutely that could happen. I mean, it's all about timing and it's all about, creating opportunities for yourself. So I wouldn't put it past that Strickland could potentially get a title shot here. I know he's number 7, but look, the UFC doesn't really care about the rankings. I think that's pretty evident.
No, it's sometimes it's like whoever's popular, whoever's hot at the moment, that's in the right spot, right? And also, what is it? Adesanya and Strickland have the same management too. So is there a conflict with interest there, or would they put the fight together
That's
a lot
good point,
easier?
actually. Yeah, I forgot about that. That Izzy's with Paradigm. Paradigm does this thing where, and I think it's good. Like, a lot of the fighters they rep actually have other managers that like they used to work with, that they'll like kind of like have partnerships with. Like Hermansson's like that, for example. Like I go through another guy to get in interviews with him that isn't necessarily part of Paradigm. He's just a guy that sort of looks out for him. So I think that's interesting. And hey, look, if I have access to your fighter, then you're good by me. I don't care how you're managed. That's all that matters. Could we consider Luke a top 5 middleweight in MMA history with the Strikeforce and UFC belts at home, even though he never defended? Yeah, I mean, Anderson Silva's top 5 no matter what, so you put him in there automatically. I'm assuming Izzy will go down as one of the greats.
Yeah,
I mean, Whitaker's got to be up there too, so there's 3 already right there. Weidman for defeating Silva, he's got to be up there, right? So that's 4.
And he defeated Vitor, TRT Vitor, right?
And potentially something that he was using Machida too, right? Remember Mousasi was talking about that.
That's right. So that number 5 spot is
he might make that number 5 spot. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's just tough because he had so many disappointing like, how do you lose to Bisping in the rematch? Like you had him beat you beat him decisively in the first fight. Why couldn't you just say, like, I don't know, he was so overconfident and then he got clipped in that fight.
It's the Amanda Nunes thing too. It's like it's the same thing, like they seemed overconfident and just they lost, because mentally they weren't there. But Luke Rockhold, he's definitely top 10, of all time. Like, I don't know about the top 5 though.
Is Strickland being underrated since his return, or there were too many question marks from him moving up with an injury? The latter, for sure. No one knew how he'd look. I mean, he almost died in that motorcycle accident. Go Google that story. He was in like a neck brace and all that stuff. And like, it seemed like especially at his age, like he was right in the prime of his career that he had that accident. I don't think anyone predicted this.
No,
outside of Strickland.
So either. Like, it's a great story, man. Like he's a guy that like we need to know more about, about his life, because he's given us little snippets, but man, good or bad, it's very interesting, the backstories of these fighters, and especially Strickland, coming back from injury.
Fernand Lopez stated that Imavov will be back in April against the top 10. Good. I like watching that guy fight. That's another guy I got to interview. I haven't interviewed him yet. That's one of my New Year's resolutions. I want to interview fighters that I haven't interviewed before. So he's one of them. But
what do you think about Lopez releasing the footage of the sparring?
Good gamesmanship.
Like doctoring the footage to show that Cyril Gane was doing better than
all is fair in love is war. I don't mind that stuff at all. I think that's going to get out in the media and people are going to talk about it, and it may or may not mess up Francis's head. I don't know. I'm for it. I mean, look, that's gamesmanship.
He really doesn't like Francis. From the interview that I saw of him talking about Francis and all the stuff that he's doing now, they both don't like each other. It's very odd how that relationship just came to a crash.
It happens.
Right?
I mean, there's certain people look at John Jones and Winklejohn now. I mean, it's there's plenty. I don't know if you saw my interview a couple months ago with Jakar Close, kind of throwing shade at Eddie Cha, saying I'll never work with that guy again. And like, it just, these things happen, right? You're so close, either it's going to work out well, or you're going to credit them for everything, or it doesn't work out. So it's very interesting. Fernand's I should probably interview Fernand as well before this fight too, get his thoughts on the big fight. Looks like the UFC wanted Jocko versus Pereira at UFC 271 first. So did that fight's still happening, right? Jocko and Pereira?
No.
Sorry. They wanted that fight. Pereira's now fighting someone else. That's right. Yeah. Sorry.
Jocko,
excuse me. I've been kind of off the grind for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Jocko called him out for not taking the fight, and then Pereira said he doesn't want to fight any boring guys. And we already know in the back of his head, Jocko's a rough matchup for anybody,
Of
especially
course, he doesn't. We just talked about this. He doesn't make you look good,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's a tough guy to take out. Jack by submission. Plus, Hermansson had a COVID like a week before that Shabazian fight.
Mhm.
Correct, but like I mentioned, I interviewed him after that Shabazian fight, like well after, and he was still having some health issues. So that's where I'm kind of like, again, COVID affects everyone differently. There's a guy that plays for the Vancouver Canucks, Brandon Sutter, who hasn't even played this season because he still has issues from COVID from last season. So again, it affects everyone differently. We're just mentioning it because it could be a factor. I mean, certain fight. Look at Nunes. That could have been one of the factors why.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's my theory of that fight. Is that
she completely gassed out in the second. When has Nunes ever
Yeah.
gassed out in 2 rounds? It never happens.
Exactly.
So that's what I mean. That's all I'm bringing it up. Does Strickland have enough power to keep this standing with a decision win or maybe a late finish? Well, we kind of already answered that. I think he does have the power to put him out, but it'll be later. I don't see an early finish here for Hermansson. So I got the COVID. It's significant, but affects people differently. That's the key thing here. It affects people differently. I've seen so many fighters who have been on the mat with Strickland say his ground game is just as good as his striking. Do we put stock into that? Well, what are they going to say? His ground game sucks? We got someone who says Strickland sucks. I don't think you can say he sucks. He knocked out Brendan Allen. He got a good win over Uriah Hall. Strickland has underrated fight IQ. He's not a brawler. That's true. Hey guys, since there's no main event for UFC February 19th, why has nobody thought about RDA versus Gillespie? It would be a fun 5-round fight. Well, you got to get 2 guys to agree to it. I don't know what's going on. And then you see Fiziev did that video yesterday on RDA as well. One of those guys will get matched up, whether it's Gillespie, Fiziev,
Ferguson. Well, RDA's calling for Ferguson fight, and then I just saw someone post something about Ferguson and Michael Chandler. So it's like, who's fighting who? I don't understand. Like,
there's no way Michael Chandler should fight Tony Ferguson. That's ridiculous. Come on. And
I don't think many guys want to fight Fiziev, to be honest with you.
No. I agree. Is Vettori the same place as Gilbert? He lost to Adesanya but beat Costa. What's next for Vettori? Well, no, Vettori's in a much different situation because he's lost to Adesanya twice. So, yeah. I mean, to get a third fight with him, that's going to be really, really, really tough. Burns at least only lost once to Usman, so he could technically get another crack at him. But he's in the same place as Colby Covington is, Vettori, like because he's lost twice to the same guy. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's next for Vettori.
He fights Paulo Costa, right? Did they fight? Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, they already fought.
I think he probably fights the loser of Cannonier Brunson, right?
Yeah, he could do that. He could. Let's say the future Izzy goes back to 205, and let's say Yuri is champ at that time. How does Izzy versus Yuri go? Well, you guys know, if you've watched the show, I'm not picking against Yuri Prohaska until he loses. Yeah. So I would pick him in that fight because there's no one like Yuri Prohaska. No one. There's no one on this planet like Yuri Prohaska, and I don't know how you train for a Yuri Prohaska. He gets hit. That's the one thing. I mean, Izzy could maybe clip him or something, but look at Dominic Reyes through the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah, I think Yuri gets knocked out eventually because he's just too wild. Yeah, he will. But
unless he changes his style, it'll probably be like a Justin Gaethje situation where he does get knocked out, and then his coaches are like, "Okay, just slow down a bit," you know?
Yeah.
Izzy's next big fight is with Hamzat. Well, Hamzat hasn't shown any willingness to go up to 185. It seems like he's only interested in welterweight fights, which I don't blame him because guess what? If he doesn't do well down there, he can always move up.
Exactly.
Started following Strickland a while ago because of his fighting. I had to unfollow him like a year ago when he said he was going to start just saying the craziest things to get attention. He's just that crazy. I don't think he's doing it for he
said that he was going to start saying crazy things because that's different from just starting to say crazy things. I don't know. Did he
I don't know. I don't really get that. I don't think he's doing it for attention. I think he just like you talk to anyone that's around him, that's exactly how he's like. Chris Curtis, prime example, asked, you ask him about Strickland. He's like, look, what you guys see with Strickland in interviews and everything, that's how he is with the rest of us. I don't think it's an attention thing. I'm sure he likes the attention, but I think it's also like, it's him airing his thoughts or whatever, right? Thoughts on Dana and Jake's videos responding to each other. Everyone's eating this up. Okay, so first off, like, what Jake said about the fighter pay thing, like it's hit a nerve with the UFC because he's right. But here's the thing. If he really, and John Nash pointed this out, if Jake Paul really wanted to advocate for fighter rights, he's linking up with the MMA FA or any of these people, Kung Lee, that have been trying to do this for years. And he can be he could do that if he really cared. It's not about that though. It's about just getting attention, getting the headlines written up. So I don't think Jake's actually going to do anything with fighter pay. As far as Dana White saying, get steroid tested and all that, like, I don't think anything comes of this. I think it's just something to keep us distracted before the next fight card. So that's my thoughts on it. And by the way, I got to point this out. How about these media outlets? There's a few of them. I'm not going to mention them on here. Uploading the Dana White video on their personal YouTube channel. Like, I know MacLife's been doing that for a while, but I saw another pretty prominent outlet do that. It's like, you guys are that desperate for content, you have to steal something from Dana White's Instagram and just post it up. Like, if you were to post it up and react to it and like give some analysis on it, I'm fine with that. But like, you know how lazy it is to like grab someone's social media video and then upload it on your channel? Like, that's beyond lazy. And I was shocked when I saw this outlet do it. If you're on my Patreon,
there's a lot of like up and coming media that are doing that all the time.
Oh, I know, all the time.
And they built their social media off that. You know what I mean? Just copy and pasting. So it's just become a thing now. It's like everybody's doing
it. But Bisping, I don't know if you saw Bisping the other day on Twitter. He called that out. He was like, "Look, it's stupid. Like, you guys," because I think he gets it now. He's a content guy. You know, you're stealing content from other people. You didn't do the work. The only work you did was steal it and re-upload it, and you're making money off of it. I know, again, it's not illegal, but it's just one of those kind of things I don't like personally. I think if you're going to do that, at least give some analysis on it, like give your opinion on it and react to it, as opposed to just uploading it. Because that's just, I mean, I don't know. As someone, you're like me, you know, we create content all the time. Like, do the work. You know, like, don't just put it up there and hope for the best. I don't know.
There's a huge thing going on in Korea with Korean YouTubers that are like, they're calling them out for stealing content. And the law's a little bit different over here. If you steal that, they could bust you for that. But there's a whole thing. But going back to the Jake thing, Jake's demands are so unrealistic. Like, if you're going to demand some things, be realistic about the demands, right? Like $50,000 starting pay. Come on, that's not realistic. Think about it. If you look at it, what's the average income a year for like an American person? I think it's like 25,000 or something like, or 30,000 a year. That's like an average income.
Average, probably 30 to 40. I would think.
No, the 40 is pretty high, man.
In America, you can't live. No, trust me when I tell you this. Like 30K, you can barely live. It's not what you like, because you haven't lived in the US in a while. It's you cannot survive on $20,000 a year. There's no way.
Okay, so let's say like a realistic demand would be like 25,000 starting pay per fight. Flat fee, right? And if you fight 3 times a year, that's 75K. That's not too bad, right? That's like way higher if the average is 40,000, right? That's not that bad. Be realistic with your demands. Like you said, James, he's just trying to get attention from the MMA media, from just boxing, just media in general. And he's just trying to, you know, play mind games with Dana. And Dana's falling for it too. He just wants, I think Dana just loves it too himself, to be honest with you. He's not even really mad. He likes it. He wants people to be confrontational with. And you know, like you said, the media just soaks it up, dude. They love it.
Is Strickland hiding something behind his personality? No, I think he's just. I think he maybe. I just think he's legit crazy, like in a weird way, you know.
Yeah, he's who he is, you know what I mean. But there's always something behind everybody, right? There's not you don't show 100% of yourself in front of the cameras. There's something there, but I don't know what it is. It is what it is.
He's just being himself. I think he was probably just holding back before. It could be. Again, we're not. This is a fighting show. We're not psychologists reading body language and stuff. You know. Who are you guys' personal favorite all-time fighter? Mine is Valentina Shevchenko. Oh, easy. George St. Pierre and Gegard Mousasi. Those are the two.
Mine's Dan Henderson and I don't know, just Dan Henderson.
Not gonna pick a Korean fighter?
No. Oh, Hamsoi.
There you go. Do you think Whitaker will fight overly emotional again against Izzy? No. And I don't know why anyone would think that he would. If anything, he's going to come out here probably looking the best he's looked in forever, because he knows this is it. If he doesn't beat Izzy this time, he's in a really crappy spot, like we mentioned, like Colby Covington would be in. And not just that, but I don't know any former champion that's had to fight 3 contenders to get a title shot again. It's ridiculous. He should have had one after the first one. It's stupid, and all this talk about Izzy's coach being like, well, we think Brunson's next. Why? Like, Whitaker, he was the middleweight champion for a while. He beat Yoel Romero twice. Like, he's had a good run, and like, you're disrespecting him, like, by not giving him this opportunity. And thank God it's happening. So no, I don't think he'll fight overly emotional.
You know what though? I think if the borders weren't closed, this fight would have happened a long time ago, because they could have had the pay-per-view in New Zealand or Australia. But it could be something on Israel's side too. You never know. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they just didn't want to fight him and they just wanted to make him fight, other people. Who knows? You know what I mean? Because you don't know exactly who has the most pull with the UFC behind closed doors, right? We don't know exactly.
Hey, James and John just came in. Who's your pick and why? We both like Strickland.
Yes.
You can go back and watch it once we're done. What is up, my man? One of my patrons here. If Rob wins and Cannoneer wins, do they do a rematch or do they look at fresh matchups? I think they do fresh matchups because they just fought. What was it, last year? Or was it? Yeah, was it last year or this year? No, it was last year. It was last year because he's been out that long.
And I thought Rob it was a pretty good performance by Rob, right? He broke his arm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I wonder how the sparring sessions between Strickland and Ferguson went down. Oh yeah, because they did spar together. I don't think they actually sparred, did they? Because they're like completely different weight classes or whatever. So
yeah, huge difference.
What else do we got here? If John looks himself at heavyweight, who are you guys taking in Ngannou versus Jones? Ngannou. I got to take the guy who's been more of a mainstay up there. I mean, I don't know how you can pick Jones and feel confident about it or whatever. So
I don't even know if Jones even comes back to fight. You know what I mean? Like he's just in a weird state of his life right now. You know what I mean? Like he just got destroyed by Dan Hooker. Like I'm pretty sure he's still brewing over that.
Kind of weird that the UFC let Jack fight Edmund while having COVID. Well, that's just it. I don't think he did have COVID because they check for that stuff like rigorously. So I don't think he had it right before the guy was saying that before. Not a fan of France, but I do know that Francis is not an outlier when it comes to his story about coming to France and all that. Basically, lots of Cameroons, Algerians, and Morocco, the same method. They came to France the same way. Again, we're not relationship psychologists here. So you'd have to ask Fernand Lopez and Francis about why they had their split. I'm not sure. Don't even want to speculate. It's one of those weird things. Do you think the UFC is scared to really push Strickland and make him pay-per-view star because of his mouth? I don't think they look at him as a big pay-per-view star or anything like that at this point anyway. So I don't even think that's a thing.
It's weird.
Still no Hamzat.
Think about it. It's like, why would they push him? Like that question is kind of, it's a good question, but it's like, why would the UFC scared to push anybody, right?
They've never looked.
Yeah.
They push John Jones. They don't cut John Jones. They push him. He's getting into trouble with the law. McGregor's getting in trouble in the law. They'll push who they want to push. It doesn't matter about them being afraid of anything. Unless it's someone of no value. Luis Pena gets kicked out of the UFC, which I don't have an issue with. I think you can't be beating up women. They kick him out because he didn't provide much value to the UFC as it was, so he was easy to release. You think they would do that with John Jones? Of course not, because they're trying to make money. It comes down to money at the end of the day. They don't think of the human element of it. It's about what's going to
remember when the UFC bailed out Jeremy Stevens
from jail? You remember when the UFC? I think they cut Miguel Torres because of a joke about
a tweet.
A tweet. And
then like a couple weeks later, I think Nate Diaz put out a tweet that was very offensive and he didn't get cut. You know what I mean? It's just, they pick and choose. Exactly.
Had to unfollow. I guess Strickland can hurt people with his words. Again, you guys deal with that yourselves. We're not here to can you ask Nasruddin about how did he end up in France? I will when I hopefully get to talk to him. What do you guys think about Glover getting King Mo to help him train for Yuri? I don't think it hurts. Glover used to train at ATT anyways. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like getting that's like Francis Ngannou getting Stefan Struve to help him train for Stipe. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it really means that much because King Mo.
But King Mo's a great coach, though. Like he's been coaching a lot of high level guys at American Top Team now. So I think it is a great move for Glover because Glover's path to victory is what? Take Yuri down and smash him and choke him out, right? So who's better?
Does Glover have a chance if he takes it to the ground against Yuri? Glover has a chance regardless of not taking it to the ground because he can
knock out Yuri.
Exactly. Yeah, don't put that back. As much as I love Yuri, I know that's a possibility for sure. Yeah. I noticed Strickland doesn't use his hips when he punches. Was this due to the accident? Good question. That's a question I'll ask him. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he's very straight up and down when he strikes. That's one thing that I noticed about him.
Yes, very much like sort of back forward. By the way, I interrupted you, and every now and then I do that. I apologize. It's just I'm a passionate guy. I like to get in there and lead the ship. Why does Izzy coach say such dumb shit? I don't know.
He's trolling.
Yeah,
he's trolling half the time. He even said it. He just wants to get a rise out of people. He's like he didn't really ever do interviews for a while, right? Did you notice that he didn't do interviews for a while until like maybe just recently, like a year or 2 years now, and he just kind of figured out the game, of interviews and that's what he's doing. He's playing with people and it's funny. I think it's okay.
Let's get to not just women, but don't beat up anyone. Well, yes, I think that goes without saying. We don't need to clarify that. Come on. It's almost like fighting Connor and asking Joe Duffy to train you. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think it really matters too much. Let's keep the questions coming. Normally this is where we do our underdog picks, but there's no UFC card until the 15th, so plenty of time. Yeah.
What do you think about? I got a question for you. What do you think about Cody Garbrandt versus Sean O'Malley main eventing like a fight night?
I'm sure they'll do it, but I don't know how anyone would feel confident that Cody Garbrandt wins that fight with his chin.
Yeah, but Cody he's interested. So would you put it together? Like,
well, then that's where your management's got to step in and say, no, Cody, this is a dumb idea. Mm-hmm. But you look at who his manager is, and he's all about the money. So he's probably just thinking, oh, we'll get Cody paid, and I'm sure the UFC will like it. But Sean O'Malley knocks Cody Garbrandt out. I'm like 100% confident in that. Like 100%.
Sticking with the Sean O'Malley theme, what do you think about him filming himself giving money to people in front of Walmart?
Yeah, it's lame, but look, we're talking about it. I wouldn't do that. I think that's in bad taste. I think that's his generation that he's catering to. Kids do that all the time on YouTube. That's his audience. That's him. They do dumb stuff like that. And yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want my kids doing stupid stuff like that. Like I'd smack them over the head if they tried to do something like that. But he's about the shock factor. It's no different than him. Well, it is different, but it's not different in the sense of getting people's attention and him saying, I'm the uncrowned bantamweight champion. I would beat Piotr Jan right now. Everyone knows that's not true, but he just does it to get in the headlines. Like one thing that O'Malley, you got to give him credit for, is for a guy that doesn't actually fight that much, he's getting in the news all the time. For various things. So he knows how to, twist the media. And I think, yeah, you got to quit doing, and if, O'Malley's managed by Vayner, you got to make a call to O'Malley and be like, dude, cut that shit out. Like, that's stupid. That it's not getting the attention you want it to. Like, it's going to get you negative attention. Kind of like this Eagle FC thing, like I was talking to someone about this the other day. I don't think we've talked since it's been finalized with Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez. Like, I don't know anyone outside of Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez who wants to see that fight. I mean, it's a stupid matchup.
It is a very weird matchup to
and it's not going to get the attention they want. They think like, oh, people love Diego Sanchez. He was the Ultimate Fighter winner, but people don't look at him like that now. They look at him as like, this guy's got some serious health issues. Look at the sort of brainwashing he went through last year from Joshua Fabia. And like it's not going to, like, Kevin Lee could fight. Kevin Lee's, I think, big enough where he could fight literally anyone and people will tune in to watch him. I don't think it matters. If you want to give him a win, that's fine, but don't give him someone like Diego. I'm sure there's other free agents out there like Ben Saunders or someone like that he could fight. You know what I mean? Like that would make more sense than him fighting Diego, in my opinion.
Is it just Eagle FC trying to build Kevin Lee into a superstar? Could
probably just like they're trying to build their own fighters. You see Jorgen De Castro is fighting Sean Asher. What are you doing there? It's silly. Yes. Sean Asher shouldn't be fighting. He's almost 40. He's been knocked out a handful of times. He had, I think, a huge gap. Remember that Bellator got him to fight Steve Mowry. It's like, what are you thinking? Like, on what planet does Sean Asher win that fight? And same thing with Jorgen. They're going to give him a push. And who's Jorgen rep by? Of course, dominance. They're trying to make their guys look good. It's crazy. Still no Hamzat. I missed your question earlier. Still no Hamzat announcement. I think they're waiting for Gilbert Burns to get healthy, and then they're going to do that fight. Even though I think it's a mistake, because if Burns wins that fight, then you have to do the Usman rematch, and I don't think people want to see that rematch right away. What do you think?
I don't think Hamzat fights Gilbert. I think Hamzat will probably end up fighting, I don't know, Colby probably.
There you go. No, I don't think he fights Colby. If you're Colby, why the heck would you want that
or Vicente? I think either one of those guys.
Well, I mean, they're kind of in the same spot, so to speak. O'Malley should fight Cruz. Yes, he should. I said that from the get-go. I think that's the fight to make. Look, Cruz is never going to be a champion again. I feel pretty confident in saying that. That was a nice win he had over Munoz. Nearly got finished in that first round. Yeah. He fights O'Malley. I think O'Malley can knock him out.
Yeah, I think
O'Malley could finish him in the first round, and that propels him way up the rankings. Because the headlines would be O'Malley beats former champion. And yeah, I think that's 100% the fight they should make. But if they're going to do Garbrandt, I mean, I just think the Garbrandt fight's a waste of time, because I don't think we're going to see.
He's a former champion too, though, and he
is. Cruz. But I think like Garbrandt's at that point where we're almost talking retirement with him. With Cruz, I don't think we're there yet.
Man, like Garbrandt's been knocked out. Isn't Garbrandt like 31 or 30?
Dude, he's been knocked out in 1, 2, 3. Just off the top of my head, I'm not looking at his record here. I think he's been knocked out 4 times in his last 6 fights. Like, that's not good, right? Because Dillashaw knocked him out twice, Munoz knocked him out, and then he just got knocked out by France. That's 4 knockout losses. That's not good. That's where you start talking about retirement, I think. when you're getting finished that bad. Maybe I'm out to lunch here, but I just don't know like where he goes from here. And I think bantamweight might be a better move for him just because of the weight cutting and being less susceptible. But dude gets hit so much. And I think if you're fighting a guy who's as fast as O'Malley is and has the power that O'Malley has, you're going to get knocked out. Like I think the Cruz fight, there would be more competitive. Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
Do you think even with another win, Edwards could not get a title shot, especially because of Hamzat and Dana preferring Luque over Leon? Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to talk about most disrespected or underrated, it's got to be Leon Edwards. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know what the plan. That could be another option. Maybe they're really trying to push to get that Hamzat fight again. That could be an option too. That might be why. Maybe they're telling Leon, hey, Leon, we want you to fight Hamzat. No, I'm not interested. Well, okay, we're going to give you the holiday season to think about it, and we'll maybe up the ante of the money or whatever. Like, it's a possibility. Don't put it past the UFC, especially because Usman's, I don't think, coming back anytime soon. I think he's in Nigeria right now. I saw Will Harris was down there doing some stuff with him. So I think Usman, and I think he's injured as well. So I don't think they're in a rush to give Usman another opponent. So you got to keep these guys active, and I think they're just trying to figure out the next move.
Okay.
Do you think O'Malley will be a free agent? I don't know the idea with his contract, but I can't see the UFC just letting him walk because he'd be a big commodity.
Yeah, I think he might, if they do want to play chicken, I think he will become a free agent. But it doesn't mean that he won't re-sign with the UFC. But I'm pretty sure a lot of the other promotions will throw big money at him. Because at the end of the day, does he want money or does he want the UFC championship?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't answer it either.
What's next for the winner of Topuria and Evlov? Why is UFC so comfortable pairing top UFC fighters so early? Well, I think it's the rankings, and I think it's also that these are two guys that aren't exactly marketable to the North American audience. So I think when the UFC is looking at their bottom line, they're like, who cares if they fight each other? We're going to figure out who the better prospect is. They do this all the time. I remember, we've seen, Macy Barber fight Jillian Robertson. We've seen Grant Dawson fight Mike Trezano. Just time and time again, you see prospects. Even Topuria fighting Yusuf Zalal. Like they want to just figure out who the better prospect is immediately, and then they can start building that fighter. Miranda Maverick.
I don't think this matchup is too early, though, to be honest with you. I think both guys are ranked, right? So if you're ranked, you might as well fight each other. Like, there's no too early for that, in my opinion. And it's a great matchup.
Yeah. Let's keep the questions coming. We've got about 5 minutes left. I think Umar Nurmagomedov seen Duck Jack Shore. No proof. I don't know. Why was he even out of the fight? I never heard why.
I don't know. Probably visa issues or something.
Could be. Robert Whitaker has the best wrestling at middleweight. His takedowns are so effective. I wouldn't disagree with that. That's true.
Yeah.
Who'd you pick between O'Malley, Yanez? I got O'Malley all day. Of course, I got O'Malley too. Yanez is good, and again, they're never going to fight until it's like for a title or something, because it just doesn't do anything for O'Malley at this point. Yanez is, like I said, he's like a cult favorite to fans that watch the sport regularly, but he's not known to the casual audience. So what does O'Malley gain out of that? Not that he had much to gain out of fighting Paiva, but I think like in this case, it's a riskier fight for him if he fights Yanez, to be honest, because Yanez is knockout power. Which division needs more star power, middleweight or light heavyweight? Oh, by far light heavyweight. Middleweight's got Izzy, and they've got, Vittori, and they've got characters in that weight class that you could build upon. Light heavyweight, it's Yuri, but it's like not in a way that can be marketable. Glover, like you go look at the interview numbers that Glover gets. Sherdog did an interview with Glover, I think a couple weeks ago. You know how many views it got? Like 60. And granted, they don't do a very good job, in my opinion. And if you're watching Sherdog, maybe I can help you out, but they don't do a very good job of marketing their interviews. Like they just put like Glover Teixeira interview. Okay, what am I getting out of this interview in the title? And like not like a good thumbnail. And there's a lot of things when it comes to YouTube to getting people to watch your content. But I mean, just to put Glover Teixeira interview, well, what about it? What did he talk about? Give me something here, So, but even with that, Glover's not getting a ton of views with his. It's just the way it is. So I would think, yes, light heavyweight needs some more personalities for sure.
Yeah, light heavyweight has a lot of fighters that are kind of just like hanging around, in that top 10. And they're not, like you said, they're not the big stars. They're not the big names. They're great fighters. They're exciting fighters, but they just don't have it like a Yuri. Yuri has something, right?
Yeah.
Yuri, once his English becomes like really, really good, I think that he's going to be one of those guys that the UFC will push, like marketable, all of that.
Yeah. He's awesome. Buckley has an in-and-out jerky style. He subconsciously allows his opponent to push him back. Al Hassan has plotting pressure style. Wonder how that fight goes. That's, I looked at that fight. That's 50-50. I really feel that way. Al Hassan, showed glimpses of the old Al Hassan in that last fight. And I think he's figured it out. I think that layoff, for whatever reason, because remember, he was falsely accused of some sort of assault charge, and that really kind of messed him up, because he's not a young guy. I think he's like 36 or 37 now.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of screwed him up. But I think the last fight finally showed some promise. And yeah, Buckley, I've always said this, just way too inconsistent. Like, he's a guy that, yes, he can get a highlight reel finish, but then he gets knocked out by Alessio Di Chirico, of all people. Like, who predicted that, right? So I think that's a 50-50 fight. Looking forward to that one when that comes up here soon. Who does Merab return against? I don't see anyone besides Cheeto taking it, as it's a bad matchup for most guys. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's going to get someone good. I mean, you just beat Marlon Moraes, and, granted, it wasn't easy. I think there's definitely a possibility of him getting someone notable, maybe like a Sandhagen or Rob Font or someone like that. I would think he's going to get that type of name.
Man, he's a terrible matchup for a lot of people, but he was almost finished right in his last fight.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
So if you're fighting a guy who can come out guns a-blazing, it could be interesting and not gas out like Moraes did. Almost all of his finishes is when he pushes his opponent to the fence and nukes the Nico Price and Di Chirico. Or are you talking about Buckley? Yeah, I guess
Buckley,
so.
probably.
Should you, or do you think about YouTubers like Jesse on Fire, who only focus on negative aspects of fighter personalities and personal issues? He recently did a thing on Cody. I did see that because I do follow him on YouTube. So basically, this Jesse on Fire guy, I do watch his stuff, and his views are, I don't know how he does it, but he gets like 20-30,000 views on like a video, and it's just him ranting about stuff. But his last video said Cody Garbrandt suicide attempt, and he was referencing the suicide attempt that Garbrandt had in his teens, but he like made it out like this was something new, like in the title. So all these people, I was reading the comments, they were like destroying this guy. So he eventually changed the title. But yeah, I don't like that stuff. I know there's people, and it's not just him. There's lots of channels. I know one in particular that literally their thing is to just make fun of fighters and talk shit about them. I don't like that. I have a lot of respect for the fighters. I know you do too, John. I know this is something you post about a lot, is, hey, we wouldn't be here without the fighters. Like, I don't like that shit. I don't think Jesse's as bad with that stuff. I think he just does a lot of clickbaity stuff. Like, and some stuff's just not even true. Like him saying like the real reason that Masvidal pulled out of Leon Edwards' fight is because they wanted to do another fight. Like, I don't believe that. I don't think he has any sources. I think there is some stuff he just makes up and puts out there. But hey, look, that's his audience, and they like that type of gossipy stuff. But that's not really what I like doing. I think there's a way you can do opinion and reaction videos without having to, go to the lowest common denominator and, deceive people or be clickbaity. But yeah, I'm never going to be like that. I know JHK is kind of the same way. We want to cover the sport and enjoy it. That's not to say you can't talk about stuff that's important, but you don't have to be mean or, that's just how I feel.
It's malicious, man. You're trying to make money off people's like
tragedies
or tragedies or making lies about people, like so you could get views. That's just, you're a piece of shit. You're like a trash human being for doing that. You know what I mean? If it's truth to it, then there's a difference. You know what I mean? But if there's no truth to it and you're just out there attacking fighters, man, these fighters, they fight and like risk themselves for our entertainment. I think people get lost in that sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Early pick for Gon versus Ngannou. We did that on here, did we not? Or we have not done that fight yet?
I thought we did that a while back.
Yeah, I think we did. So yeah. Just check on the channel. I'm pretty sure we did that fight, but I forget. Listen, we do so many shows. I mean, it's crazy. What topics are off limits discussing with fighters? I think
nothing really.
Yeah, I just think, I think it's just like any dinner conversation, religion, politics, for the most part, it just, I don't think.
I never talked about religion or politics unless it was in like, it has tied in with something.
Unless positive. Like Colby or something, like, hey, you met Trump or something, that's a little bit different. So
I don't think I've ever talked about politics with any fighter because I've never interviewed Colby, and that's the only person that I know that's like in politics, really.
Political,
to be honest with you. Except for Kevin Lee when he like, what is it? Endorsed what's his name?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders. That was just weird.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to zoom through these questions. We're over time here, but we'll get to these last ones. Why did the UFC even put Leon and Nate together in the first place? Would Nate have gotten a title shot if he beat him? Yes, of course, that was the plan. They wanted Leon to lose, and it nearly happened. I heard Umar say the UFC apparently kicked him out of the fight with Jack Shore without saying nothing. Okay, I don't know. Again, we don't know the details behind that. How do you guys think Whitaker can beat Izzy? We did. We've done that fight, right? Izzy and Whitaker. Yeah, we already did that one. Again, comic. Look on this channel. We previewed a ton of upcoming fights, including that one. We also did Islam Makhachev and Beneil Dariush recently as well, too. Let's keep that in mind. Did you see Khamzat's New Year's post facing off with Usman? I bet Ali doesn't want Usman close to Khamzat. You're right about the latter. And yeah, of course. I mean, I would hope that fight happens at some point. I think the 205 division was just built around John Jones. Once he left, the division died out. Very true. Outside the UFC, which promotion interests you the most? For me, it is, that's a good question. I would say Bellator, but man, they've really dropped the ball with not having a TV deal in Canada and all that. I don't really stay up and watch Ryzen or One Championship. Oh, here's a question I have for you. What's going on with Arjun Bhullar? Maybe you know better than me that he's been turning on these title
same
fights.
Same thing that's happening with Francis Ngannou. They have the same manager.
But what specifically is that they're not paying him enough?
Contract, you know.
So that is it. Okay.
Dispute. That's what it is. Like, he turned down a bunch of title defense fights, and then One Championship got to the point. It's like, why are we even offering you fights? You're the champion. You're supposed to fight the challengers, and you're not taking any fights. So they just moved on.
Yeah, I gotta talk to Arjun about that when I get back home, because he actually lives pretty close to me, and see what the deal is there. But yeah, it could be a money thing. We'll see. What are your thoughts on John Jones and Dan Hooker's situation? My thoughts are, I don't care. It's a Twitter thing. And sure, Hooker's just sticking up for his teammate. Sinister, the show is every Tuesday. It's today. We had to do it Monday because I'm flying back home tomorrow, so I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I didn't want to do it later in the week just because I got to get back and get back to work. All these stick and ball sports need to be evened out with some MMA already. Hey, don't give any smack to hockey. Hockey's a great sport. Both Nico Price and Alessio Di Chirico got nuked. Blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, sure. Great point. I think they risk their lives for their entertainment. This is what everyone should think before offering their opinion. I agree. I enjoy your Prospects videos where you ask who the most attractive fighters are. Who are yours? I'm not going to tell you who my most attractive fighters are. Someone's going to clip this. It's going to go on Reddit. It's going to ruin my marriage. I can't do it.
I'll tell you who it is.
Who?
Claudia Gadelha. I've met her in person. I'll tell you right now. She's probably the most attractive I've seen. And I've seen, we've probably both seen many, not even famous ones, like there's a lot of attractive fighters in the regional scene and all of that stuff. But I think Claudia Gadelha, she's retired now.
I've interviewed her in person.
Yeah, me too. I've interviewed her.
I would give Juliana Pena a slight edge over here. But anyways, Rangers with a great win last night, and the Devils. I barely watch any hockey because I'm out east here. Okay, that does it for us. More than enough time we've been over here. We'll be back here a week this Tuesday, so a week tomorrow. We'll be back previewing another upcoming notable fight. We'll be back in our regular time slot. Again, appreciate you tuning in this week. It's just, it's again, because I'm flying home tomorrow. I'll be back in my studio. No Canadian flag in the background here, and doing this from a garage. I'll actually be back there as well. Keep your eyes out. I will be back to interviews starting this week. I've got a few booked up here. So I'll be getting back in the saddle. Just needed some time off, hanging out with family, had my birthday, all these things. So it's just, it's been nice to just kind of unwind and not have to think about fighting for a bit, but I'll be hitting the ground running, starting basically Wednesday. That's basically when I'm back to work here. So the 5th as well. And I'm going to have my Q&A this Thursday on my second channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So if you guys have any questions here, just wait for them Thursday on my second YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/LynchMMA. JHK, what do you got going on this week? What's up? I was looking in the back end before I got on here. You got a ton of interviews coming out. I'm looking forward to checking those out.
Yeah, I got a bunch, man, that I haven't put out. I got Jack Della, UFC 270. I got a bunch of One Championship fighters. You mentioned earlier the Tyson Chartier interview is out already. Cody Gibson, Tony Gravely. I got a good interview with Eric Nixick, ahead of UFC 270. It's going to be out soon. Ramiz Brahima, Sarah Kaufman, Dakota Decheva, TJ Brown, Joseph Holmes. Saeed Yaqub. That guy's an interesting character right there. I like him a lot.
Yeah. People forget he fought for PFL like a couple years ago, and then it didn't work out, and then he switched management, and now he's in the UFC, which is awesome. Had you interviewed Dakota before, or is that your first time? She's going to be a star. She is and this card they're doing up in Edmonton. I wish I could go. There's a lot of notable names on there, including Kaufman, you mentioned. But Dakota Devicha, keep an eye on her. She's going to be at the very least, I think, on Contender Series next year. But she is someone that, trust me, is going to be the next big star because she's really good. I talked to Molly McCann about her and stuff, and she's just unreal skill set for 22 years of age. She's been training since she's 4, and stating the obvious, she's easy to market, if you know what I mean. So I think she's someone that's going to be the next big star to come into the UK for sure. I don't know how you feel, but
Yeah, for sure. She's looking like she's gonna be like a new wave of like a Valentina Shevchenko. She has
Yeah.
that background, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
she's really good. She can wrestle. If you've watched her, go back and watch a couple of her fights. It's on YouTube. She's 3-0. Two of the fights you can watch. She's sick. Like elbows are crazy. Like she's and physically she's very long for the division. I don't know. Like you said, she's very marketable.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that does it for us. We'll see you a week tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone, and enjoy your weekend. If we don't talk to you, there's no fights. Spend some time with friends and family, and then we hit the ground running on the week of January 15th. So everyone, take care and have a great rest of your Monday.